loves, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jessie Jade and I am here to bring all things spirituality and self-development into the modern world so that we can apply it to become our highest potential. So today we're here to talk about shadow work. So shadow work is this beautiful, amazing thing that we do in the spiritual community and outside of the spiritual community. It's any time we're working on those deeper, darker parts of our lives and parts of ourselves, whether we're going to therapy and working on old trauma, or whether we're analyzing that we always speak to our partner in a specific way that upsets them and it's coming from a triggered response. That's a shadow. Or if every time we go to have a family gathering, we end up getting really anxious and flighty beforehand. These are all little shadows that we could be working on in or out of the spiritual community. But when we're in this state of really consciously going in and diving into those parts of ourselves that are triggered or are traumatized, that's when we're consciously diving in to do this work. And when we're being conscious of it, there is such a thing that I feel like a lot of us in this kind of spiritual community get into, which is the shadow work trap. Now, the shadow work trap starts from really great intentions, and it can often happen to these very, like myself, type A, always trying to achieve kind of human beings. And that's where there's always something to heal next. And this is a trap that a lot of us get into with the best of intentions of, I want to clear my familial trauma. I want to clear my trauma from this lifetime. I want to go ancestrally. Oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that right. Oh, I get triggered here. I get triggered there. If I watch the news, and it never ends. And it snowball effects into just creating this bigger idea that we have all of this trauma that we need to get rid of, all of these shadows that are getting in the way. But then we come back and we usually get to realize that the whole point of being a human is to be triggered. If we got rid of all of our shadows and all of our triggers and nothing ever bothered us and we always lived in this like high vibe, whatever space, we're not learning here. This incarnation, we're not learning anything else. And so the whole point of being here is to notice I'm feeling really triggered because that person had something ill to say towards something that I care about. So how can I release the power that that thing has over me? Why am I triggered? Where does that stem from? And maybe it's not eradicating it, but maybe it's just realizing it. Maybe you never get rid of that trigger or that shadow, but at least instead of reacting, you're being conscious about these things as you move along. Or maybe you just go, you know what? That's something that I really stand for. And maybe you can't do the deep shadow work in this lifetime, but you can see that every time it comes up, you know, okay, it's hit something that I care so much about that I'm a bit attached to, and that's okay. I'm not going to react. I'm just going to know that this is my body's way of responding, and I'm going to let her know that she's safe. And this is something that is so powerful, something that is also absolutely related to shadow work. Shadow work isn't just diving in and just stripping away and cutting back and eradicating all of these things that trigger us, that cause pain for us. Sometimes it's learning to accept that this is how we feel about something and just make our reactions more healthy so that they don't trigger our nervous system so much. And then other times you'll go on that journey of, you know what? I'm eradicating this. It's been in my family line and it ends with me. Or you know what? I'm not going to treat my partner this way anymore. I'm going to go in and I'm going to figure out why every time a man looks at her, I just boil and I shut down towards her. I'm going to look at that because that affects the person that I love. And that is not a necessary trigger to have around me. It could be anything. And when we go into our shadows and into our triggers and we slowly start to understand them, We understand ourselves. We have compassion for why this came up. Why was it here to protect me in the first place? If we're being triggered, there is a part of ourselves that wants to jump in and protect us because something happened along the line in our lifetimes. So doing the shadow work is so important, and it's so beautiful, and honestly, it's extremely necessary in living a more aligned way of life. But in the same time, it's really important to have a look and go, have I fallen into the shadow work trap? Did I just work on my relationship? But now I think I need to work on this. And then I should probably bank in later that once I'm done with my nervous system, I'm then on to how I deal with my family. So we put in this bank all of these things that we need to heal and fix. And all that does is say to us, I need to be healed and I need to be fixed. And I'm not perfect as I am. And perfect might not be the best word, but I'm not whole as I am. Once I heal all these things, then I'll be whole. Then I'll be enlightened. Then I'll be spiritual. But there is no benchmark for spirituality. There is no benchmark for wholeness, because we come into this world whole and perfect and divine, and we come out of this world whole and perfect and divine. And our shadows become so much of what creates us and so much of how we react with the world. And so do the light aspects and the beauty. And the thing isn't about eradicating the shadows and eradicating the ego. It's about how can I integrate this? Okay, this traumatic thing happened. For me, I had personally trauma recurringly happen for a while when I was 13 and 14. And instead of cutting it out and icing it and just eradicating as much as possible, I at the start thought that when I did the shadow work, that it would cut it out. It was gone. It wasn't a part of me anymore, and I wouldn't operate ever from those triggers again. And then I realized 7 or 8 years into my deep spirituality that I was never going to sever this, because this was 2 years of my life that turned into many years of my life dealing with. And it actually created so much of who I was. It actually propelled me into this journey. It gave me so much strength and so many tools. I can now see into the deepest depths of a lot of situations that are horrific, and I can understand them. And I can tune into people on a level that I never would have been able to tune into had I not experienced that with another person, not from. I'm lucky enough that with the shadow work that I didn't eradicate it. I did cut cords with the triggers. I did cut cords with the way that it would impact my life if I thought about it, or if a man came near me, or whatever was happening, whatever the trigger was. I was able to make peace. And a lot of the time, we're so busy thinking that we need to be perfect and cut our cords and eradicate our shadows that we forget it's about just looking at them. Because when you shine light on a shadow, it's not dark anymore. It's seen. You know that it's there, and it's not this shadow looming over here and affecting you. It's integrated. You're aware of it. So when it comes, it's not scary anymore. You can look at it and go, hi, I see you. Thank you for showing up, but I'm safe now. Thank you for reminding me of who I am and how you were once a part of my life, but I'm okay now. And that's all we need to do in our shadow work journey. There will be some things that you will get to just put down and say goodbye to forever. And there will be a lot that's just a beautiful integration. And there will be some that will be a lifetime or lifetimes of journeying through. And they're all divine. They're all beautiful. They're not holding you back from being you. You are you, and you are whole in every expression. You are constantly learning and growing. And yes, with some of those shadows, when you get to integrate them, you're going to be an even more free expression of yourself. But a more free expression of you is no more divine and no more important than a more caged expression of you. Everything is divinity in its own right. And I think we forget about that when we tap into our shadow work trap and we're constantly being fed, well, you're not this, or you're not this, or you can't handle that, or the news still triggers you, or whatever it might be. That's not the point. So, a few things that really helped me along my shadow work journey was journaling. That one's a little bit obvious, but journaling was absolutely incredible for me. And if you're not someone who can sit down and write, then getting into your voice memos and speaking out loud using your throat chakra to be able to turn something that is inside of you and creating turbulence into something tangible is extremely powerful. And that's exactly what we're doing when we're journaling as well. We're taking something inside of us and we're pouring it out onto pages. And then we can use our own creative flair when we're journaling. We could put it into dot points. We could use colors. We could scribble and draw. We could place it all over. We could mind map it. We could just journal it like a fucking essay, whatever feels good. And then maybe once we've written it down, we want it gone. It's out there, but we want it gone. We don't want that sitting in our book. So we tear it off and we burn it and you let it go into the ether. Or maybe just pouring it out and having it there is enough for you. So something that I used to do when I would journal, I would just write down the heading of what I wanted to journal, and then I'd write myself little prompts and little questions of, why is X so hard for me to deal with? And I'd start to write that, and then I go, where did X start being a problem? And I'd start to whittle it back. Maybe I'd find out that this belief that was a trigger for me actually came from my parents. Maybe I'd find out that it came from schooling or somewhere else. And I'd be able to start to alchemize and understand that that's not my belief at all. It's something that was instilled to me in the schooling system that was not my belief, should not be my belief, but is still affecting me however many years later. And I'm still allowing it to be a roadblock for me. So that's where journaling can be really incredible, and so can voice notes. Again, if journaling isn't your thing, I've actually been getting into voice notes a little bit more when I have all these ideas or all these feelings I want to get out and I'm driving. It's been amazing just to ask Siri to turn voice recording on, and it's been amazing to get it out. And then when I listen to it a few months later, I can see how much I've moved on from that perspective. Even if it's just a little bit, it shows you how far you've come. So another thing that has really helped me in the form of shadow work is moving emotions through my body as they come up. So a lot of us will have a way that we deal with emotions. If I'm triggered, I classically will shut down. I'll actually go have a shower. That's my thing. I will shut down and I will walk away. And if I'm in my home, I will go and I'll sit down in the shower and I sit there and I dissociate. So that's my way of coping when I'm not feeling very present. So for a lot of us, we shut down. Maybe we go into a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. We all have our thing. Maybe we get angry. Maybe we just need to escape and go drive, whatever it is for you. But slowly, and this one takes time, I've found that some of the shadow work for me is really in embodiment. So instead of trying to shut down and escape that emotion, I'll sometimes still need to leave the room, but other times, if it's not a confrontation with somebody else, I can close my eyes when I remember to, or I can take myself away and remember to do this. And I start to just drop into my body. And I start to just drop into the sadness or the anger or the disappointment, whatever the trigger is. And then maybe I feel myself rolling my neck. And that could be really small rolls or really big, long ones. And I feel my hair over my face and I feel my neck and where it's tight. Maybe I start to roll my hips. And maybe these are small and back and forth. Maybe they're around in circles. But I'm starting to drop in and feel the sadness. And I'm starting to move that emotion in my body. Because when we shut down, we store emotion in the body because it has nowhere to release to. So when an emotion is stored in the body, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It doesn't go away. That could stay as a trauma, or it could just stay as an emotion in the body that needs to be released but isn't being released. And every single time you shut down or you do that thing that isn't helpful, you end up compounding it. And so the whole point of this is finding a really safe way to, as close to in real time as possible, move through the trigger, move through the issue. And then maybe it looks like crying. Maybe you end up crying, or maybe you end up feeling that anger. But when you're moving this process out of the body. And then sometimes you can start to shake. I know shaking is so helpful for me and it has so many benefits. Or dancing, but moving the body is so incredible. And sometimes it doesn't feel safe to move the body, especially if we're very rigid, which is where little neck rolls, little body rolls, or tapping is my personal favorite. You can look up where to tap on your body, but we have specific points that make tapping, I think they're meridians, really safe and really special in unlocking and moving trauma through the body. But any form of movement that you can do whilst feeling that emotion, because it's safe and you're letting it go. And that's what we want to focus on. And that has been such an incredible form of shadow work for me that's not so masculine, sit down, write it logically, and all that kind of stuff, which has its place. But so does the feminine embodiment of the emotion. That also has its place. So, a third way that I absolutely love to work through some shadow work is I love pulling tarot or oracle cards. Now, tarot, as I've spoken about a little bit in my podcast, it has to do with an ancient system, and each card in the major or minor arcana has its own purpose and its own flair to it. So, the Emperor means something specific, the High Priestess means something specific, and so does the Ace of Cups. All of them. All of them have a specific frequency and characteristic embedded within them. And then Oracle, the frequency and the meaning embedded within an Oracle deck is made up by the creator. So for me, I use an Oracle deck by Izzy Ivy. It's so beautiful. It's amazing. And I personally am tied to that deck because of my past lives in Lemuria. So it's a way for me to be able to download the codes and understandings from past lives that I've lived. So it really speaks to me. You can have fairy oracles, you can have unicorn oracles, you can just have positive affirmations, you can have goddess, Egyptian, any vibe that you want, really. You can just look them up online. And whatever the frequency that that creator has put into those cards is what's there. So it's not necessarily ancient. It could be ancient wisdom that they've pulled in, whereas tarot is a system that has been used for however many years. And it's a followed system of divination, and it's so beautiful. And so sometimes when I'm just going through something, maybe I'm not even aware of the shadow, and I just say, what is it that I'm not seeing? And I move into my tarot the way that I pull my cards, and then I pull and I get the answer. Or maybe I'll know what it is, but I won't know how to move through it because it's been in my field for so long. And I might say, how can I start to heal this shadow? And I'll pull my tarot card and it'll come out with a way for me to heal. And then I can ask for more clarification, or I can ask, what is the light side? There's a myriad of ways for you to be able to ask your tarot and connect in. But that is one way that sometimes I'll then use that tarot card as my journal prompt or my voice recording prompt, and I'll walk myself through it. Tarot isn't biased. So we can pull cards that can seem a little negative and pull cards that seem more positive, but in the end, they are not biased to us at all. However, I do struggle sometimes, even after all these years of doing tarot. Sometimes those more harsh cards hit me on days that I'm feeling a little bit sensitive. So that's where I'm like, you know what? If I'm just going to ignore the message because I'm feeling sensitive and I'm going to take it biasly, that's when I'll ask those questions in my oracle. Because I find, especially in my oracle cards, they're just so positive and they're so just otherworldly and from different realms. And that's the energy that I'm looking for, is a little less of that masculine and more of that like, what can I download now from the other realms? And so I'll ask those same questions. I'll open up my Lemurian card. And It might cater more to something that I wasn't even thinking of in the energetic realms, or to a chakra system, or to an element. And that can be a really soft way for me to understand my shadows and start to implement them for me, from maybe a little more feminine, softer approach. Because some days I need it a little softer. But that's why tarot and oracle is just such a helpful tool for me to do my shadow work and maybe make it a little more playful or a little more visual, or however I want it to feel on that day. So I think this wraps up this episode on shadow work and the shadow work trap. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode and tuning in. I would love to hear in the comments if you utilize any of these tools for shadow work, or what you do use to move through shadow work as it comes up. And if you've ever been caught in the shadow work trap or the healing trap, I'd love to hear about your experiences, any episodes you want to see in the future, and what really spoke to you. And if you're loving this content, please like, share, subscribe. I'm here to put out these videos to help people feel related to and heard and seen, so that we can broaden ourselves in the spiritual realm and take some of these more heady and ancient concepts and bring them into the modern world so they're more applicable for us. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, my loves.